Welcome to the Grim Outpost. If your GPS ever tells you to take Route 9 south, turn the car around. I don't care if the main interstate is locked in gridlock for 50 miles. I don't care if it's pouring rain. I don't care if your gas light has been glaring at you for the last hour. Drive into a ditch if you have to. Just do not take that exit. I made that mistake. I was desperate. And because of what I did, whatever they were keeping buried beneath that highway isn't trapped anymore. I am typing this from a corner booth in a 24-hour diner. It sits somewhere off Interstate 87, though my brain is too fractured right now to process the name of the town. It is 4:15 in the morning. The coffee sitting in front of me tastes like burnt copper. I am forcing it down anyway. My hands are shaking so violently I keep rattling the ceramic mug against the saucer. Every time a pair of headlights sweeps across the fogged-out diner windows, my lungs lock up. I stop breathing. I just stare out into the dark parking lot, completely expecting to see a rusted chrome bumper idling just beyond the reach of the streetlights. Waiting for me. To understand why I am writing this, you need to understand the kind of desperation that strips away your common sense. 3 weeks ago, I was drowning. My landlord had practically hammered a 3-day eviction notice into my apartment door. I had exactly -$42 to my name. When you are staring down the barrel of sleeping in your back seat through a northeast winter, you stop questioning the lifelines you are thrown. You just grab the rope. The ad was buried. It sat at the very bottom of page 4 on a local, unmoderated job board. There was no company logo. No corporate formatting. It was just 4 lines of plain text. Asterisk overnight toll monitor. Route 9 sector. 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. $45 per hour. Must have reliable transportation and pass a background check, asterisk. $45 an hour. Just to sit in a chair and watch commuters throw quarters into a plastic basket. I didn't think about it. I just dialed the number. A man answered on the second ring. His voice sounded like 2 cinder blocks dragging against each other. He didn't ask for my resume. He didn't ask if I had ever worked security. He only asked me 2 things. He asked if I struggled with isolation. And he asked if I had any history of sleepwalking. When I told him no, he gave me a set of coordinates. He told me to be at the Route 9 maintenance pull-off the following night at 10:30 p.m. sharp. The drive out there should have been my final warning to turn back. Route 9 is a ghost road. It hasn't been printed on an official state map since the late 1980s. The deeper I drove into the foothills, the more the environment seemed to reject my presence. The trees along the shoulders had grown incredibly thick. Their branches reached out like decaying fingers, weaving together overhead to form a suffocating, wooden tunnel over the blacktop. They swallowed what little moonlight managed to reach the highway. My headlights cut through the dark, illuminating nothing but cracked asphalt and encroaching weeds. Eventually, my GPS lost completely. But I found the maintenance pull-off. It wasn't a depot. It was just a crude gravel clearing carved aggressively into the ancient pines. Standing in the center of that clearing, illuminated by a single, sickly yellow floodlight, were 4 toll booths. They straddled 4 automated lanes. They looked entirely wrong. They were pristine, modern, bulletproof glass boxes dropped into the middle of a dead, forgotten forest. A man was waiting for me. He introduced himself as Vance. He wore a faded, navy blue transport uniform. The fabric looked at least 20 years old, worn soft at the elbows, but it didn't feature a single state seal, badge, or name tag. He didn't offer his hand. In fact, he barely looked at me. Vance just turned and gestured for me to follow him into the heavy steel door of booth 4. The inside of the booth smelled strongly of ozone and industrial floor cleaner. It was tight. Claustrophobic. There was a metal desk, a rolling chair, a digital camera console, and a heavy vault-style lock on the door. "The job is automated," Vance said quietly. His eyes were constantly moving, scanning the dense tree line beyond the glass. The commuters dropped their exact change into the baskets. The gates lift. They drive through. Your only job is to sit in this chair, watch the camera feeds, and make sure the physical mechanisms don't jam. I looked at the heavy lock on the door. And if they do jam? Vance finally looked at me. His expression was completely hollow. He reached into his breast pocket, pulled out a laminated, double-sided sheet of paper, and pressed it flat against the metal desk. "If anything deviates from the standard routine, you consult the sheet," Vance said. His voice dropped. The casual, instructional tone vanished entirely. "You do not improvise. You do not call the police. You do not leave this booth until 6 in the morning, when the automated day locks click open on their own." He tapped a heavy finger against the laminated plastic. "If you break a single instruction on this paper, you will not live long enough to cash your first paycheck." I let out a nervous laugh. I expected him to crack a smile. I expected the punchline. Vance didn't blink. He just turned his back on me, stepped out into the freezing night air, and pulled the heavy booth door shut. I heard the thick metal deadbolt slide into place from the outside. I watched him walk to an unmarked white pickup truck, start the engine, and drive away into the dark. I was completely alone. The first 14 days were agonizingly quiet. And honestly, that was the worst part. The silence out on Route 9 is unnatural. It is heavy. It presses against your eardrums. There are no crickets out there. There are no owls. You don't even hear the wind moving through the massive pines. There is only the low, hypnotic, vibrating hum of the fluorescent light tubes mounted to the ceiling of the booth. By the fourth night, the absolute isolation began deteriorating my mind. Just to have something to focus on, something to ground me in reality, I found myself reading the laminated sheet. Over and over again. I memorized the text. And the more the words settled in my brain, the more an oily sense of dread began to pool in my stomach. The rules weren't written like a joke. They were written like a survival manual. Asterisk Rule 1, the toll is exactly $2.50. If a car approaches and the driver hands you a $50 bill without making eye contact, take it. Print a receipt. Do not look in their rearview mirror, asterisk. Asterisk Rule 2, between 2 a.m. and 3:15 a.m., a matte black sedan with completely blacked out windows will pull into lane 3. There is no driver inside. You will hear the sound of a child crying from the trunk. Do not press the emergency gate release. Wait exactly 60 seconds, and the gate will lift on its own, asterisk. Asterisk Rule 3, if a vehicle approaches from the wrong direction, driving north in the southbound lane, do not blink. Keep your eyes locked on its front bumper until it vanishes from your line of sight. If you blink, it will stop, asterisk. Asterisk Rule 4, if the automated coin machine in lane 2 begins rattling, as if something is trying to claw its way out from the coin return slot, turn off your booth lights immediately. Press your back flat against the floor. Do not look up at the glass windows until you hear the sound of heavy rain, even if the sky was perfectly clear when your shift began, asterisk. Asterisk Rule 5, you are not keeping things out of the highway. The toll booths are the locking mechanism keeping something vast underneath the asphalt. If all 4 booth gates open at the exact same time, you have 3 minutes to run into the woods. Do not look back at the road, asterisk. By the end of the 3rd week, my mind had built a fortress of denial. I had convinced myself I was part of some elaborate, twisted psychological study. It was a corporate endurance test. They were pushing a desperate guy to the brink of sensory deprivation just to see how strictly he would follow insane instructions for a paycheck. It was the only logical explanation. Then came last night. It was 1:14 in the morning. A heavy, unnatural fog had rolled down from the mountains. It didn't drift. It settled over the blacktop like a solid, gray wall, suffocating the lanes. I was leaning back in my chair, staring blankly at a game on my phone, fighting to keep my heavy eyelids open. Ding! The lane sensor chime cut through the silence like a gunshot. I dropped my phone. A pair of dim, halogen headlights slowly cut through the thick fog, approaching my window in lane 4. It was an old, tan station wagon. The body panels were eaten alive by rust, and the engine knocked with a horrific, rhythmic clanking. It idled up to the glass. I let out a breath I didn't realize I was holding. A lost tourist. That was all. I rolled back my small glass slider window, putting on my best customer service smile. The man in the driver's seat wore a faded, gray business suit. The fabric looked damp. He didn't turn his head to look at me. He kept his unblinking eyes locked dead ahead on the closed yellow gate. His hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that the skin stretched white over his knuckles. Without saying a single word, he slowly raised his right hand toward my window. Pinched between his index and middle finger was a crisp, perfectly clean $50 bill. My throat slammed shut. My eyes darted to the laminated sheet on the desk. Asterisk take it. Print a receipt. Do not look in their rearview mirror, asterisk. My hand was trembling so hard I almost dropped the bill as I took it from his fingers. The paper was freezing. It felt like it had been buried in deep snow. I swallowed hard, turning my back to him to face the terminal. I pressed the override button. The machine whirred, spitting out a small paper receipt. I turned back around and slid it through the window, grazing his cold fingers. The moment he took the paper, the automated yellow gate lifted. The station wagon's transmission clunked loudly, and the vehicle slowly began to roll forward into the fog. I had done it. I had followed the rule. But the human mind is a fragile, flawed thing. We are entirely driven by the things we are told we cannot see. As the rear bumper of the station wagon cleared my window, my gaze drifted. It was completely involuntary. My eyes traced the side of the car, traveling up to the side view mirror attached to the driver's door. I looked. There was no reflection of the dark highway. There was no reflection of my illuminated toll booth. Inside the small, rectangular glass of that mirror, I saw a vast, endless, pitch-black ocean. The sky above it was dead, illuminated only by the faint, bleeding light of dying red stars. And floating just inches beneath the surface of that black, oily water, were hundreds of bloated, pale human faces. They weren't moving. But every single pair of dead, white eyes was staring through the glass. Staring directly at me. The station wagon vanished entirely into the fog. The silence rushed back into the booth. But it was wrong. The low, hypnotic hum of the fluorescent lights above me suddenly shifted. The pitch dropped, turning into a deep, vibrating whine that rattled my teeth. I fell back into my chair, my chest heaving. Sweat poured down the back of my neck. I had broken the first rule. I looked. My eyes shot up to the digital clock mounted to the steel wall. It was 1:58 a.m. 2 minutes until the window for Rule 2 opened. I sat paralyzed, watching the red digital numbers glow in the dim booth. 1:59 a.m. The whine of the lights grew louder. The fog outside thickened, pressing against the bulletproof glass like wet cotton. I couldn't even see the yellow safety gate directly in front of my own booth. The outside world no longer existed. 2 a.m. A sharp, violent burst of static shattered the air. KRSSSSH. I jumped, crying out as I slammed my knee against the underside of the desk. The sound wasn't coming from the intercom. It was coming from an old, dust-covered Motorola two-way radio mounted securely beneath the metal desk. I had completely ignored it for 3 weeks because it was completely dead. No lights. No battery indicator. Nothing. Now, its small analog screen was glowing. It pulsed with a faint, sickening green light. Fourth shift, respond. Booth 4, do you copy? The voice was heavily warped, drowning under waves of atmospheric static. But the cadence was unmistakable. The grinding, gravelly tone. It was Vance. I ripped the heavy plastic receiver off its hook, pressing the push-to-talk button with a trembling thumb. Vance? Vance, is that you? Listen to me, something is completely wrong out here. A car just went through lane 4. I think I messed up, Vance. I looked in the mirror. There was a long, agonizing pause. The static hissed through the small speaker, rising and falling like the sound of a breathing lung. Warned you about the mirrors, kid, Vance's voice cut through the noise. He sounded incredibly far away. The mirrors show the reservoir. Don't look again. If you look 3 times, they don't even need the gates to take you. What reservoir? I screamed into the plastic mic, my panic fully taking over. Vance, what the hell is this place? The floor is vibrating. The air in here smells like old pennies. Come get me. I don't care about the money anymore. Just come unlock the door. Can't do that, the radio crackled. The daylocks are set. Nobody comes down Route 9 until 6 a.m. Not even me. Listen to me carefully. What does the digital console say for lane 3? My eyes snapped down to the interface on my desk. A small, flashing red indicator light was pulsing rhythmically next to the monitor feed for lane 3. It says there's a vehicle idling, I whispered, my throat dry as sandpaper. But I can't see anything through the fog. It's 2:03 a.m., Vance said. His voice suddenly shifted. The static vanished entirely. He sounded perfectly, terrifyingly clear. He sounded like he was standing right behind my chair. Rule 2. The black sedan. Do not touch the emergency override switch. If the trunk pops open, do not look at it on the camera feed. Just close your eyes and count to 60. Vance, please, wait. And kid? Vance interrupted softly. If the radio clicks 3 times without me speaking, turn it off. Pull the lithium battery out. Do not let it talk to you. The line went dead. The green backlight on the Motorola screen flickered, then died. I stood completely frozen, the heavy plastic receiver hanging uselessly in my hand. My eyes drifted, against my own will, toward the closed-circuit monitor on the desk. The camera feed for lane 3 was grainy, shifting in black and white. Through the pixelated snow on the screen, I could just make out the heavy, long silhouette of a vehicle. It had no headlights on. The windows were pitch black, completely absorbing the ambient light of the camera. Asterisk, there is no driver inside. You will hear the sound of a child crying from the trunk, asterisk. I stared at the screen. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Then, a tiny, muffled noise bled through the booth's external intercom speaker. It was a soft, rhythmic scratching. It sounded exactly like fingernails violently digging into the thick carpet of a car trunk. A second later, the scratching stopped. It was replaced by a sound that completely shattered my composure. It was a child's voice. High-pitched. Muffled by heavy metal. And incredibly desperate. "Mommy? It's dark in here. Mommy, let me out. I can't breathe." The intercom picked up a violent, hollow thump from inside the trunk. Then came a frantic, breathless, terrified sob. Every single human instinct I possessed screamed at me. My brain fired on all cylinders, demanding that I act. The red emergency gate release button was right there. It was 3 inches from my hand. A single press would lift the barrier. It would let the car drive away. It would end the torture echoing through my small booth. I reached my hand out. My index finger hovered less than an inch above the glowing red plastic. Asterisk, click. Click. Click, asterisk. My blood turned to ice. The 3 sharp, mechanical clicks hadn't come from the external intercom. They had come from the dead, unpowered Motorola radio still clutched in my left hand. The screen did not light up. But from the cold speaker grid, a voice began to whisper. It wasn't Vance. It was my voice. It sounded exactly like me, but hollowed out. Warped. Speaking in a slow, flat monotone. "Press the button," my own voice whispered through the plastic. "Press it. Let us out. We are so cold under the asphalt. Press it." I couldn't breathe. I couldn't process the impossible reality in my hands. My voice hissed through the speaker again. "Press it. Press the button. We want to meet you." With a panicked shout, I threw the receiver. It violently smashed against the metal desk. My hands were shaking so uncontrollably I could barely grip the base of the radio. I frantically dug my fingernails under the release tabs, violently ripping the heavy lithium battery pack from the back of the device. The battery clattered heavily onto the concrete floor, rolling into the corner. The radio was completely disconnected. It had no power source. But the speaker did not stop. "Why don't you want to let us out?" my voice whispered. But the tone was changing. The monotone drawl was shifting, twisting into a wet, raspy, gurgling wheeze. "We've been watching you watch the screen for 14 days. You look so lonely in your little glass box." I scrambled backward. My boots kicked desperately at the concrete floor until my spine slammed hard against the vault door of the booth. I pulled my knees to my chest and covered my ears with both hands. But the sound didn't care. It vibrated directly through the bulletproof glass. Outside, the muffled, agonizing screams of the child in the trunk grew louder, more violent. Inside, the wet, gurgling whispers of the unpowered radio continued to mock me. The two noises twisted together into a maddening, discordant symphony of suffering that pressurized the tiny room. "Count to 60. Vance's warning echoed in my fractured mind. "Just close your eyes and count to 60. I squeezed my eyes shut so tight it physically hurt. I buried my face between my knees. Asterisk 1. 2. 3. Asterisk. Every single second dragged by like an hour. Asterisk 21. 22. Asterisk. The voice on the radio stopped whispering and began to laugh. It was a wet, rattling sound, like a throat completely filled with dark fluid. Asterisk 45. 46. Asterisk. Ding. The lane sensor chime cut through the chaos like a knife. A loud, mechanical clang reverberated through the foundation of the booth. The yellow gate for lane 3 lifted on its own. Through the thick glass, I heard the heavy, low purr of the matte black sedan's engine. It slowly accelerated, its tires crunching over the loose gravel, rolling forward into the impenetrable fog until the sound vanished completely. The radio went dead silent. The crying stopped. I let out a long, ragged, pathetic breath. I was trembling so hard I could barely pull my hands away from my ears. The temperature inside the booth had plummeted. My breath was turning into pale plumes of vapor in the air. I dragged myself across the floor, pulling my exhausted body back into the rolling chair. I looked up at the digital wall clock. 3:14 a.m. I survived the window. I had kept my finger off the button. A wave of profound, exhausting relief washed over my body, making my limbs feel like lead. I reached for my freezing coffee, telling myself that if I could just hold my sanity together for less than 3 hours, the day locks would click open. I could get in my car, drive away from Route 9, and never, ever look back. The red numbers on the clock flipped. 3:15 a.m. From the deep, pitch-black woods to the south, a low, guttural roar echoed down the valley. It did not sound like a modern vehicle. It sounded like a massive, ancient V8 engine with a cracked manifold, screaming at full throttle. A split second later, a pair of blinding, yellow high beams pierced the fog. My breath caught in my throat. The headlights were not approaching from the north. They were coming from the south. They were traveling the wrong way down the southbound asphalt, accelerating incredibly fast, rocketing straight toward lane 1. The light was agonizingly bright. It cast long, sharp, distorted shadows across the interior of my small booth. Through the glare, I saw it. It was a heavy, rusted, 1970s-era pickup truck. The massive chrome bumper was deeply dented and smeared with dark, dried stains that looked like old rust. Or old blood. Asterisk Rule 3, if a vehicle approaches from the wrong direction, do not blink. Keep your eyes locked on its front bumper until it vanishes. If you blink, it will stop, asterisk. I gripped the heavy metal edge of the desk. I widened my eyes, forcing my eyelids up until the skin stretched painfully taut. I locked my vision dead onto that dented steel bumper. The truck was a roaring wall of rusted metal. The glare of the high beams hit the bulletproof glass of my booth, refracting into 1,000 jagged needles of pure, white light. They stabbed directly into my retinas. My eyes instantly began to water. A wave of intense, burning dryness scraped across my eyeballs. It felt like sand had been thrown into my face. Don't do it, I screamed internally. Do not close your eyes. The truck was right there. It was passing lane 1. The massive tires shook the ground. Just one more second and the bumper would clear my line of sight. It would be gone into the dark. But the physical agony was too much. The burning was unbearable. A violent, completely involuntary reflex seized my facial muscles. My eyelids slammed shut. It lasted less than a quarter of a second. A tiny, microscopic fraction of human time. But the moment my eyelashes parted again, the roaring of the V8 engine was gone. Complete, suffocating, dead silence fell over Route 9. The rusted pickup truck had not vanished. It was parked dead in Lane 1. It sat idling in absolute silence, right next to my booth window. The driver's side window was rolled down. From the darkness inside the cab, a pale, unnaturally elongated arm slowly reached out into the cold air. It pointed a single, trembling, graying finger directly at my face. I couldn't move. My muscles had turned to concrete. The high beams of the truck were still blazing, casting a sickening yellow glow through the dense fog. I stared at the driver's side window, desperately trying to see the face attached to that impossible, stretched arm. The interior was completely dark, illuminated only by the faint, sickly green glow of the dashboard gauges. Slowly, the driver leaned forward into the light. It wasn't a monster. It was Vance. But it was not the man who had hired me. His skin was translucent, like wet parchment paper. It was stretched so violently tight over his skull that his cheekbones looked like they were going to puncture through the flesh. His jaw hung completely open at an unnatural, unhinged angle. It swung loose, swaying slightly like a broken door hinge. When he spoke, his cracked lips didn't move. His tongue sat dead in his mouth. The voice resonated from deep within his hollow chest, wet and echoing. "You blinked, kid," Vance rasped. The sound was horrifying. It sounded like dry autumn leaves being scraped across a concrete sidewalk. "I told you. If you break a single instruction, you won't live long enough to cash the check." Vance. I choked out. My voice was a pathetic, broken whisper against the thick glass. "Please. Help me." The thing wearing Vance's face slowly smiled. It was a wide, jagged grin that completely split his lower lip. A thick, viscous black fluid began to trickle from the wound, sliding down his chin. "Vance isn't here anymore," the wet voice echoed from the chest cavity. "Vance blinked in 1994. We just keep his clothes." The unhinged jaw violently snapped shut with a horrific, bone-crushing crack. Before my brain could even process the horror of that sound, a massive explosion of noise erupted from directly behind me. It was Lane 2. RRRTTTT clack clack clack. The automated coin drop machine wasn't just jamming. The heavy iron basket was violently shaking. It was vibrating with such immense force that the thick steel bolts anchoring it into the concrete island were audibly ripping out. From deep inside the narrow coin return slot, a sound emerged. It was not the sound of stuck quarters. It was the frantic, incredibly fast, desperate sound of dozens of long, metallic fingernails clawing against the inside of the steel chute, trying to rip their way out. Rule 4, turn off your booth lights immediately. Press your back against the floor. Do not look up at the glass, I didn't hesitate. I lunged across the desk, swinging my hand wildly until I hit the main breaker switch on the wall. I slammed it down. Complete darkness swallowed booth 4. The only illumination left was the sickly yellow light bleeding in from the idling truck in Lane 1. I dropped to my knees and threw myself flat against the freezing concrete floor. I pressed my spine hard against the metal base of the desk, pulling my arms over my head, burying my face into the floor dust. Above me, the frantic clawing inside the metal machine stopped. A second later, a wet, incredibly heavy slap echoed against the roof of my booth. Something massive had jumped from the island of Lane 2 directly onto the top of my glass box. The thick steel support beams grooved into the ceiling loudly groaned under an immense, shifting weight. Then came the dragging. Slap, slap, slap. It sounded like a massive, wet, exposed organ dragging itself slowly across the bulletproof windows right above my head. A terrible, suffocating stench filtered down through the tiny air conditioning vents. I gagged, pressing my hand over my mouth. It smelled exactly like a flooded basement, rusted copper, and old, corroded pennies. I squeezed my eyes shut, my entire body convulsing with silent, terrified sobs. Rain, I prayed to whatever was listening. Please let it rain. I strained my ears, listening to the sky. Nothing. The night air outside was dead and bone-dry. Suddenly, a loud, synchronized, mechanical sequence shook the entire valley. Clang 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 clang. It was the heavy pneumatic gears of the automated highway gates. I didn't need to look at the digital console. I knew exactly what that sound meant. The mechanical groans of all four barriers lifting echoed in perfect unison through the thick fog. Rule 5, the toll booths are the locking mechanism keeping something vast underneath the asphalt. If all four booth gates open at the exact same time, you have 3 minutes to run into the woods, The concrete floor beneath my chest violently buckled. A massive, deafening, tearing screech ripped through the air as the asphalt outside physically split wide open. The vibration was so intense it completely shattered the bottom pane of my booth window. A shower of safety glass exploded over my legs. A deep, low rumble vibrated upward from miles beneath the earth. It was a sound that felt less like an earthquake, and more like a colossal, ancient chest cavity taking its very first breath after centuries of burial. I didn't think anymore. The 3-minute timer was running. I scrambled to my feet, my boots slipping on the broken glass. I threw my weight against the heavy vault door, ripped it open, and bolted straight out into the freezing night, sprinting blindly toward the pitch-black wall of pine trees. I gripped my phone tightly in my pocket, my only lifeline. The forest air was freezing. It instantly turned my panicked breathing into thick white plumes. Behind me, the sound of tearing metal, collapsing concrete, and groaning earth echoed through the valley. Route 9 was completely tearing itself apart. I ran blindly. I pulled my phone out and flicked on the flashlight, using the weak beam to cut through the heavy fog weaving through the trunks. Sharp pine branches whipped aggressively across my face. I felt hot blood trickling down my cheek, but the adrenaline completely masked the pain. I must have sprinted for 2 minutes straight before my light caught a shape standing up ahead. A man was standing perfectly still between two massive pine trees. He wore a faded, damp corporate suit. His arms hung limply at his sides. I skidded to a halt, my boots digging deep into the wet pine needles. "Hey!" I screamed, my voice cracking. "Hey, we have to go. The highway is collapsing." He didn't move. He didn't turn to look at me. I took a cautious, trembling step closer, slowly raising the phone light to illuminate his face. My stomach dropped into a bottomless pit of horror. It was the commuter from Lane 4. The man who had handed me the $50 bill. His eyes were wide open, completely glassy, staring blankly up into the dark, overlapping canopy of the trees. He was breathing, his chest rising and falling slowly, but his mouth was locked wide open in a rigid, completely silent scream. I stumbled backward, absolute panic taking over, and swung the phone light to my left. There were more of them. Dozens of them. They were standing in neat, straight rows among the ancient trees, spaced perfectly apart like a twisted, human orchard. I saw a woman wearing a minivan sweater. I saw a teenager in a blood-stained college hoodie. I saw long-haul truck drivers. I saw morning commuters. I saw entire families holding hands. Thousands of people. Thousands of missing drivers who had taken Route 9 over the decades. All of them standing shoulder to shoulder in the freezing dark, perfectly frozen in place, staring directly up at the sky. Then, the catastrophic rumbling from the highway suddenly stopped. In the dead, suffocating silence of the forest, a synchronized, wet crack echoed through the trees. All at once, every single one of the thousands of missing drivers violently snapped their heads down. They weren't looking at me. They were looking past me. They slowly raised their pale, rigid arms, pointing their long fingers toward the edge of the woods. Toward the highway I had just run from. "It's out," the man in the suit whispered. His voice sounded like grinding stones. "It's out," the woman in the sweater repeated. The chant spread through the dark woods like a horrific wildfire. Thousands of voices layered over each other, building into a deafening, vibrating drone. Asterisk, it's out. It's out. It's out, asterisk. The dead-eyed, pale drivers began stepping forward in perfect unison. They were closing the circle around me, their arms outstretched, pointing back at the ruin of Route 9. I looked back. A vast, impossible, dark silhouette was slowly rising above the tree line. It blotted out the stars. It was dragging a massive, shifting shape up from the bleeding crater beneath the split asphalt. I screamed. I shoved my phone deep into my pocket, spun around, and sprinted away from the closing circle of bodies. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs went numb. I scrambled over the buckled, smoking concrete of an outer service barrier. By some absolute miracle, I found my car still parked untouched in the gravel lot. I tore out of there, driving like a maniac over the unpaved grass until I finally hit a paved state county road. I haven't stopped driving until I hit this diner. I am physically safe right now. But mentally, I am completely broken. Because sitting here in this booth, staring out the window, I finally figured out what the toll booths were actually doing out there in the dark. They were never collecting money. They were collecting attention. The entity buried under that road feeds entirely on human awareness. It needed people to interact with it. It needed people to look at its rules. It needed people to sit in the dark and wonder what it was. Every single time a driver focused on that yellow gate, every time they handed over a coin, a tiny piece of their consciousness was trapped there. It anchored the entity beneath the earth. The rules were the cage. By breaking the rules, I broke the seal. And now, staring at my empty coffee mug, I realize the most terrifying part of Rule 5. The entity is free. And it is moving. It doesn't just wander aimlessly. It follows the paths of those who know its patterns. If you are reading this post, or if you are listening to these words right now, you know the rules. You are thinking about it. You are visualizing the toll booth. You are feeding its awareness. If you are sitting in your room tonight, and you start hearing the heavy, rhythmic sound of rain tapping against your window, and you know for a fact that the sky is completely clear, do not look up at the glass. It knows exactly who is looking for it.